Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'll be sharing my experience with respect to English as part 3 of my RBI Grade B strategy series. So, in this video, I'll be discussing my approach towards English objective, which is asked in the phase 1 of RBI Grade B examination. So, let's begin. As you can see, my marks over last 3 attempts in phase 1 of English section in 2021, I scored 25 marks, 25.25, although I did not clear the prelims cutoff this year. In 2022, my marks were 23.25, and this year my marks are 18.75. The reason for dip in this marks, I'll explain in later slides why this dip has happened. But if you ask me my overall feeling with respect to the English objective examination, objective, in my opinion, is very high scoring section, and it is very important that you score well in English objective if you want to clear the prelims examination, because it is one of those sections which has been consistently at easy to moderate level, and because of that, it becomes very crucial that you score good marks in this section. So without doubt, it has to be a make or break section. So if you see over these years, although there is more uncertainty in the GK, in the quant, and in the reasoning section, but English is one such section which you can rely upon. So you have to do well in this section if you want to clear the phase 1 examination, without doubt. So if you see the topics which have been asked in phase 1 examination over the past few years, so broadly the areas from where the questions are asked, this include RC, closed test, para jumble, sentence rearrangements, errors and omissions, vocabulary, idioms and phrases. So these are the broad topics. A little bit deviation might be there with compared to these topics, but usually you'll see questions which are centered around these topics. So RC, you can have 2 to 3 RCs depending upon length of the RC. If the length is long, so they can ask even 6 questions from one passage, or even 8 questions from one passage, or there can be 2 short passages with 5 plus 5 questions, or 3 short passages with 3 to 4 questions from each passage. So this is the usually the pattern. You'll have one parajumble or sentence rearrangement, and follow-up questions will be there. So 4 to 5 questions, or 6 questions also, depending upon number of sentences. Then and remaining you have these error, vocabulary, idioms and phrases, and closed test questions. So this is the broad breakup of the topics that you can find in the English section. Now, if we go topic wise and how we should approach this section and different topics of this section, so I like to explain a little on how one should be approaching different sections in English and what should be the strategy for this section. So to begin with, if you are beginning English, your basics of grammar must be solid, and to make a solid foundation of grammar, you must have an overview of the basic grammar rules with regard to nouns, pronouns, adjective, adverb, preposition, conjunction, voice tenses. So these rules, there are some basic rules like, for example, if you see, I have seen this is a very common error, and many times in examination also you will see in the omissions and errors part. Like, for example, you have do, you have did in a sentence, and it is always followed by V1. Right. So many times these are very basic rules. So you can observe this also while you're reading newspaper, or while you're watching some movie. So you can also observe these things. And secondly, if you know the rules, that is well and good. So if you want to clear these basics, So there is a Bible for English grammar, which is Wren and Martin. So you can refer to Wren and Martin book, and once you just go through it to just an overview of what is actually there in the basics that one needs to know in the English language. In my opinion, RC is the most tricky section in English paper, because what happens, there are certain type of questions in RC where you need to read the passage twice or thrice to get the correct answer. So first you need to be very clear of those kind of questions, and you need to be very cautious before attending them. So I was explaining you why my marks went down this year, and if you ask the exact reason from me, the reason was very simple, because I did not follow what I'm about to tell you in the examination. In the flow, it happens. So in RC, you will get, there are certain type of question which are based on the inferences, or for example, they'll ask what is the inferences from this passage, what is the tone of the passage. So these types of questions, they are very subjective questions, and you need to be very clear with the passage in order to attempt it. And to get a clarity of the passage, you cannot get that clarity by skimming quickly, because what happens, there are two ways to approach a passage. First, you see the questions and then you find the answer in the passage, and second is you read the passage, you comprehend it, and then you attempt the questions, because it is comprehension, right? So ideally this should be the way, but given the paucity of time in the examination, it is very difficult to do that. So if you're good at reading, you comprehend it really fast, then you can follow the second method. But usually I'll suggest first is the most preferred method in competitive examinations. So I'll discuss about it more later. But for now, what we need to know is that in RC, some of the areas which you must be focusing upon while preparation or while attempting mocks is vocabulary. Because what happens, if you are not clear with the vocabulary, you might not get the exact sense of the passage, whether it is trying to criticize, whether it's trying to support, whether it's trying to be critically analyze a topic. So you need to be very careful with your vocabulary. And secondly, the speed. So you have to be very fast in reading the comprehension, because comprehension takes a lot of time. And English, you have to score good if you want to clear the phase one. And if you want to score well in English, you can't get afford to waste time in reading comprehension like 5 times or 6 times. You will lose your entire time in comprehension only, and other low hanging fruits you'll lose. And so this you have to be very careful with your speed. Third is picking right questions. So I have taken a few PYQs to explain what I mean by right questions. And right questions are basically those questions which you have to attempt first when you are reading any RC, right? And next is the reverse method, which I already told you, that you first read the questions and then based on questions you try to find solution in the passage. So usually what happens, in many of the passages you will find the questions limited to a certain paragraph, certain portion of the paragraph. Like they'll ask, for example, there is a comprehension on AI. So a passage will mention the advantages of AI. So the question will be on what are the advantages of AI, or what can be possible advantages, something of that sort. And so you see the keyword that the question is asking for advantages. So you find it in the passage and you will find the answer in a sequence. This is a good thing in RC. If you are able to make this match very quickly, then it will be very beneficial for you. And lastly, newspaper. So if you are reading newspaper, it is really good. It improves your comprehension skills, it improves your vocabulary, and overall your English language improves. And not necessarily newspaper only, if you are reading a novel also, so that will also help. So that is mainly to increase the speed and condition your eye to pick up the keyword, to see the keywords, right, when you are doing this reverse engineering. So you have to be conscious of this fact, right? Next topic is parajumble. Again, parajumble in parajumble, what it happens, I've taken one example of parajumbles as well in today's video. So in parajumble, you'll be given like 5 to 6 sentences, and you have to rearrange them in the proper sequence. So these types of questions, this also takes time, and the most difficult thing with parajumbles is that if you get any one sentence wrong, then there is a possibility that four questions or sometimes even 5 questions that are following up, at least 3 to 4 will go wrong, and you will be under impression that you have done it right because you have attempted it, you have given effort. So we have a biasness of attempting the questions in which we have given effort, and we see that we can find some answer. So this can be dangerous. And you have to be very careful while solving parajumbles. You need to follow some basic rules, and you have to do practice of parajumbles. In addition to this, there is a miscellaneous section as well, and the miscellaneous topics which I am telling is close test, spotting errors, and so these are usually easy topics. And if your fundamental English is decent, so you can solve it and you can score good from these areas. And in out of 30 questions, 15 questions or even more than that you can find from these areas. So these are low hanging fruits, and you have to solve these questions first before moving on to parajumbles and RC. Few PYQs I have taken just to illustrate how we should be approaching. For example, look at this PYQ. So here there are six sentences, and quickly if you see that we have to rearrange the other sentences, and one of these is redundant sentence which has to be eliminated. So one of them is not suitable in this flow of sentences. Sentence B would be the second sentence. So this is the second sentence. So you cannot change this sentence, the order of the sentence. So this will remain as second sentence. Now we have to find what will be the first sentence. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. One sentence is redundant, so we have to rearrange 5 sentences, and we know that this is B. Now, a first sentence will be something which gives an idea or indication to what will be the context of these sentences. So let's try to find what it can be. Let's see. So 13 plumes of gas were observed. This can be. By contrast, it is trying to compare and contrast. So this cannot be the first sentence. The total flow rate again of the plumes. So here is an reference to plumes, and here is also a reference to plumes. Here is 13 and of all plumes. So this will also not be the first sentence. A remote sensing satellite has detected a release of methane. So this can be a first sentence. Mr. White said it was not known how long the release continued. So this is also abrupt. So this will not be the first sentence. So E will be the first sentence. Now moving on. So B is indication of the scope of the problem of curbing emissions of methane, a potent planet warming. So it is referring to methane. So it will be followed up by something which is related to methane emission. So 13 plumes of the gas were observed. So 13 plumes. So I know that mm, this D will be after A, right? So I know that A, B, because first it will refer to 13 plumes and then all plumes. So that is how I have deduced that D will be after A. So these two will be in pair. So we need to find just one more sentence, and which is relevant to this flow, right? So by contrast, the highest rate, this is again talking about rate, and it is contrasting the rate between California, which is US, to Russia, I think, because in the remaining sentences, if you see, it is mentioning Russia. So this contrast is suitable to the context. So in my opinion, it will go A, D, C. So this should be the sequence, right? So I found the sequence. So it takes time. You can just go back in the video and see how much time I've taken. and I have a fair bit of practice of these doing these kind of questions. So in the examination hall, you can also add on to the pressure. Sometimes your mind gets a blockage and you're not able to think very in a very calm and composed way. So that impacts your efficiency in the exam. So you need to factor in these conditions as well before reaching any conclusion that how much time you'll be taking to solve this. And if, let's say, if any one of the sequence goes wrong, so it badly impacts your score in these type of questions. For example, if let's say B was not given the second sentence, and if I put B in the place of D and A in place of C, something of that sort happens. So in the sequence, your 4 to 5 questions are gone, and if your 4 to 5 questions are gone, your chances become very less to clear this examination. Let's look at what questions they are asking. First question is fourth sentence after rearrangement. So it was E, it was B, A, D, C. So D. So you can mark D, and then they have asked about sequence. So you'll find a sequence. So this is how these questions are done. But again, these questions, again, I'm reminding you, you need to do in the end. First, you need to do those low-hanging fruits in English, and then you should be going to parajumbles and RC. Now check this RC. This is a long RC, and as you can see that there are 8 questions from this RC. So you can find these kind of questions also in the examination, and these look very overwhelming. But first thing you need to be very clear about is you need to have a quick overview what this passage is talking about and what is the central theme of each of these 3 paragraphs. So if you have broad idea of what the central theme is, then you can do, it will help you in reverse engineering the answers, right? And secondly, I was telling you there are some questions which you should not be doing initially when you are solving a RC, like what can be inferred from this passage. So if you want to know the inference, you need to grasp the central theme of the passage very clearly, then only you can solve it. Then again, look, the second question, what were the objectives of the off cycle meeting by RBI? So it is asking of objectives. So usually objectives will be mentioned in one of the paragraphs. You can pick up from there. So it is very clear. So it does not happen that you will find 2 objectives in paragraph 2 and another 2 objectives in paragraph 4. So it does not happen like that. Objectives all objectives will be in sequence and in one particular paragraph only. Changes, again you see changes introduced by RBI new policy. So it will be again in a sequence. So these types of questions are doable. This is a reverse engineering question. This is a reverse engineering question. This question you have to do in the last, because you have to read passage twice or thrice to get to the correct answer. You can also choose to skip these questions, this question, in case you are not able to find or you are not confident with the correct answer. Which of the following, if correct, most invalidates the argument in the third passage? So for these type of questions, A, B, C, D, trust me, you will have to think and read the third passage, the third paragraph 5 times. Every time you read it in sentence, you'll have to go back and check in the theme of the third paragraph, because that is how RCs are. You need to be very careful in dealing these kind of questions. So this is to be done in the last. Which of the following is true according to the data in the passage? Again, you will have to check data in the multiple paragraphs. So this is also one of the questions which you need to do in the end. What is the primary focus of author? Primary focus of author, this is again you have to do in the end, because you have to read passage and understand it thoroughly. Which of the, choose the word most similar. Now these types of question to gradual, this is very easy question. Synonym question, this is a synonym. So even if you have not read the passage, you can attempt this question. But when, for example, in this gradual, you can say it cannot be intermediate, cannot be measured, restrained, it is uniform. So you are getting an idea that uniform is an answer, but still you just go back to the passage and check the context to get more clarity and more whether it is suitable or not. Right. Next is opposite. Be very careful with these terms, whether they're asking for say synonym or antonym. You have to be very careful, because if you are doing these kind of mistakes, so these are not forgivable in the examination. The competition is very tough. You have to be very careful with your with the words that the question is mentioning, and you have to read the question twice. Deleterious. So it is asking opposite of deleterious. So if you know, you can answer it directly. If you don't know, you can skip this question. Or if you can get an idea after reading the paragraph that what sense that word is making, so you can just infer the answer from there as well. So these tricks also help in arriving at the answers in English, right? So that's it for English from my side. If you need any help, if you need any guidance, if you have any questions, you can drop me a mail over here. You can comment also in this video, and I'll try to solve your queries as far as my knowledge goes. Yeah, thank you.